There are games that leave you staring at the clock afterward, wondering how a handful of seconds can shape an entire afternoon. That was exactly the vibe after Pittsburgh stepped off the field with just those few extra ticks of possession time against Cincinnati, and honestly, even that tiny sliver felt like a blessing. It might not sound like much when you hear it out loud, but in a matchup that begged for rhythm, begged for control, begged for an offense to stop fighting against its own identity, those seconds mattered more than the final box score will ever show. Going into this matchup, there was already a quiet storm brewing around what this offense needed to become. Not a flashy concept, not some explosive reinvention, but a real foundation, something steady, something that didn't evaporate every time third down rolled around. The idea all week had been simple. Find a way to run the ball with purpose, to stay on schedule, to stop treating every possession like a crisis drill. No more playing like a team, just trying to survive the next snap. Play instead like a group that knows exactly what it wants to do and is determined to impose that vision. And sure, it took time. It always does when a team tries to shift gears mid-season. Aaron Rodgers had flashes early on, even if the numbers weren't exactly glowing. Those third downs were a grind, and Cincinnati clearly arrived with the mission of making him uncomfortable. Every time he dropped back on the crucial downs, you could practically feel the weight of defenders collapsing the pocket. Instead of taking the simple throw that would move the chains, he kept trying to escape the wave of pressure, and that's when the entire rhythm would sputter out. Then came the moment no one loves to see. Another injury, another twist in a season that already felt like juggling bowling balls. Rodgers left, and just like that, the ball was in Mason Rudolph's hands. Suddenly, without warning, the offense started to resemble something closer to the blueprint that had been preached all week. The running backs were churning out yards with confidence. The tight ends finally emerged with those short, timing-based throws that this system desperately needs. The receivers were finding pockets of space, especially on those longer attempts that keep defenses honest. And above everything else, the group stayed committed to the ground game. Over and over again, run after run, methodical and deliberate, the kind of football that keeps an opposing defense gasping for air. The craziest part of the entire afternoon, easily the detail that no one would believe without looking at the stat sheet twice, is how little Pittsburgh even touched the ball after halftime. 2 possessions. That is not an exaggeration for effect. 2 offensive drives in an entire half of professional football. Those defensive scores turned the second half into a bizarre, almost surreal experience where the offense barely stepped on the turf. And yet, in those 2 drives, they carved out more than 13 minutes of clock, piling up more than 150 total yards with an efficiency that almost didn't seem real given how disjointed things had been earlier. Rudolph walked off the field 12 of 16 with more than 100 yards and a touchdown, which on paper looks good but not outrageous. What made it noteworthy was the context. No rhythm leading in. No warm-up stretch of possessions. Just 2 drives and a mandate to control the game, and the unit delivered. 7 minutes and change for a field goal. 6 minutes and change for a touchdown. And just like that, the entire identity that this team has been chasing floated right into view. That, truly, is what this offense has needed all along. Not spectacular hero ball throws. Not desperation heaves on third and forever. Just a deliberate, almost stubborn commitment to playing on their own terms. When this team goes big, when they line up with size and muscle and force a defense to deal with it, everything else becomes easier. The tight ends suddenly matter. The receivers have more room to operate. The quarterback, whoever it is, stops playing like he has to be a magician every down. And speaking of the quarterback situation, the truth right now is pretty straightforward. When Rodgers is healthy, he is almost certainly going back out there. That has been clear from the start. But that doesn't mean the formula changes. No matter who lines up behind center, the approach has to look like what we saw in those 2 long second-half marches. Running the ball with conviction, using the big bodies to create mismatches, letting the passing game live off timing and structure rather than desperation. That is the version of the offense that helps the team breathe, that helps the defense stay fresh, that takes pressure off coaches who, let's be honest, have not exactly been known for mid-game wizardry. When your offense is dictating terms like that, everything else settles. Suddenly, you are the one steering the afternoon instead of reacting to whatever the opponent is throwing at you. That is the kind of identity that withstands the grind of a season, the kind of identity that actually gives you a chance against the heavy hitters waiting down the stretch. Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore. Those are not games you walk into with a scattershot plan. Those are battles that demand clarity about who you are and how you intend to win. And with the makeup of this roster, with a mix of veterans who still carry the biggest burden of production and younger pieces who elevate the overall ceiling, the mindset has to be bigger than just scraping together wins. This team has to think in terms of real goals, season-defining goals. No one is saying it has to be some outlandish prediction about rings and confetti, but every decision, every adjustment, every bit of preparation has to point toward competing at the highest level. When you zoom out and really look at what this season has been, you start to notice how often the conversation comes back to identity. Not just in the abstract sense of who the team wants to be someday, but in the immediate, practical sense of what style of football gives them the best chance to walk off the field with a win. That question has lingered for weeks, sometimes buried under the noise of the quarterback discourse, sometimes overwhelmed by injuries, sometimes overshadowed by frustrations about play calling or execution. Yet the truth keeps circling back to the same simple realization. This group is at its best when it stops pretending to be something flashy and leans into what it can control. That is why those 2 drives in the second half against Cincinnati felt so revealing. It was not just about the points. It was not even about the efficiency. It was the way the offense operated with a calm that has been missing for far too long. No panic, no desperation throws into double coverage. No sense of trying to outrun the collapsing pocket on every crucial down. Just a steady march, a confident pace, the kind of football that makes a defense slowly wilt because they know there is no shortcut to getting off the field. Every snap felt like a reminder that an offense does not need to be explosive to be effective. It just needs to know exactly what it wants to do. That mindset becomes even more important when you consider how this roster is built. The offensive line has had its share of growing pains, but when a scheme gives them the opportunity to fire off the ball instead of backpedaling into pass protection every other play, they look different. They look more physical, more confident, more capable of dictating the line of scrimmage. The tight ends thrive in that environment too, because they're not just running routes for show. They become central pieces, catching those short, timing-based throws that keep the offense moving while also setting the tone as blockers. And the receivers, especially the ones who can stretch the field or carve out space over the middle, finally get a chance to make plays without having to wait for a miracle escape from the quarterback. What stood out most was how the quarterback position itself suddenly felt less dramatic. No matter which name is on the back of the jersey, the task becomes much more manageable when the offense is built around structure instead of improvisation. When a quarterback knows that he does not have to play superhero on 3rd down, everything improves. Decision-making becomes cleaner. Throws come out faster. Mistakes decrease. Drives extend instead of sputtering into 3-and-outs. That is the version of this team that can actually challenge the elite defenses they are about to face. And those challenges are coming quickly. The schedule tightens from here. Chicago on the road will not be forgiving, no matter what their record suggests. They thrive when opponents become one-dimensional, and if Pittsburgh walks in there without the same commitment to running the ball and owning the tempo, the game can flip in a heartbeat. After that, Buffalo looms, and that is a team that punishes inconsistency harder than almost any other. Then there is Baltimore, the kind of rival that never needs extra motivation to turn a matchup into a slugfest. Those games will not be won with randomness or scattered planning. Those games will demand the exact type of identity that emerged in those long, grinding drives last weekend. For weeks, it has felt like fans have been begging to see a spark, something that hints at long-term growth rather than short-term scrambling. And while the quarterback debates have dominated the surface conversations, the deeper issue has always been the overall shape of the offense. It is never just about who lines up behind center. It is about what the team asks that player to do. When the offense is built around frantic survival, the quarterback wears the blame. When it is built around structure and rhythm, the entire group elevates, and the quarterback simply becomes the one steering the ship instead of trying to rebuild at mid-play. Of course, this does not guarantee wins. No style ever does. Not in a league where games hinge on inches and timing and unpredictable breaks. But this particular approach does something far more valuable than guaranteeing results. It stabilizes everything. It keeps the defense fresh. It reduces how often the coaching staff needs to scramble with emergency adjustments. It allows games to unfold on Pittsburgh's terms instead of devolving into frantic track meets. And most importantly, it reflects what this roster was actually built to do instead of forcing it into a mold that never quite fit. There is also a long-term angle that cannot be ignored. This team, as currently constructed, still leans heavily on experienced players who know how to navigate the grind of the season. They are not in a complete rebuild. They are not in a youth-only movement. They are in a transition phase, balancing veterans who can still carry major roles with younger players who are slowly carving out their places. That kind of mix requires clarity. Veterans need a system they can trust week to week. Younger players need responsibilities they can grow into. And coaches need a blueprint that does not change every 7 days depending on the opponent. When the offense operates with a clear identity, everyone benefits. The running backs stop facing stacked boxes because the play-action game finally matters. The receivers stop fighting through contested catches on every route because the timing is sharper. The defense does not have to spend nearly the entire second half on the field. And the team as a whole starts to look like a group that is moving towards something instead of treading water. Moments like the ones we saw last weekend are often the first signs of a turning point. Not definitive proof, not some magical transformation, but a glimpse of what things could look like if the team fully commits. And that is where the focus has to be now. Not on hypothetical quarterback showdowns. Not on panic-driven adjustments. Not on noisy debates about individual performances. The attention has to shift toward who this team wants to be when the stakes rise and the margin for error disappears. Because the truth is simple. The teams that make deep postseason runs are the ones that stop chasing trends and instead lean into what they do best. The ones that embrace their strengths, commit to their style, and let the rest of the league adjust. Pittsburgh does not need to become the flashiest offense in the league. It just needs to become the most honest version of itself. And what we saw in those second-half possessions offered a blueprint that is not just realistic but sustainable. And yes, there will always be chatter from fans who want glimpses of the future. There will always be questions about the quarterback depth chart, draft choices, and young prospects sitting on the bench. That is part of the sports ecosystem. But the mission cannot get derailed by every passing wave of excitement. The mission is to win now while building toward later, to thrive today without sacrificing tomorrow, and to create a brand of football that can carry this team deeper into the season than most people expect. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are circulating through Pittsburgh that Coach Mike Tomlin is preparing a radical overhaul of the Steelers' defense, and the NFL world is buzzing with speculation. Sources close to the team hint that what is being described as a completely new defensive scheme may already be taking shape behind closed doors, leaving analysts and fans alike scrambling to anticipate what could be one of the boldest moves in recent franchise history. According to insiders, Tomlin has been meeting with his defensive coordinators more frequently than usual, reportedly experimenting with unconventional alignments and packages that could transform the Steelers' approach from the ground up. Some describe the rumored system as a hybrid between traditional zone coverage and aggressive man-to-man blitzing, a blend that could catch opposing offenses off guard if implemented correctly. While details remain scarce, the very suggestion of such a change has sent shockwaves through locker rooms across the league. The leak has fueled intense speculation on social media, with commentators debating the potential risks and rewards of Tomlin's rumored gamble. Will veteran defenders embrace a scheme that demands a higher football IQ and faster reaction times? Can younger players step up to fill new roles that may come with added responsibilities? These questions are dominating conversations among fans and pundits, who are already imagining how such a shift could alter the Steelers' identity on the field. Industry insiders warn that if the rumors prove true, this could signal a departure from Tomlin's typically steady, conservative defensive philosophy, signaling a willingness to innovate in an era where adaptability is key. Some suggest that rival teams may already be trying to decode the hints of the scheme based on limited practice reports and scrimmage patterns, adding a layer of intrigue and gamesmanship before anything is made official. Whether this overhaul will be revolutionary or just a temporary experiment remains to be seen, but the NFL community is undeniably on high alert. One thing is certain. The Steelers' defense may be on the cusp of a transformation that could redefine how opponents approach the game in Pittsburgh. For now, fans can only speculate, debate, and watch closely as the league waits to see if this rumor is just smoke or the start of a defensive revolution under Tomlin's watchful eye. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.